Oh, that's pretty tight.
How
Why do you just keep fucking stealing glasses?
Because it's very English.
Is it?
Yeah,
really?
it's like an English thing to do.
Right.
Well, because like when you're in England, there's literally nothing to do but drink at pubs.
So
So you keep stealing glasses, and you just have like like that's how you get glasses when you're a student, is you steal them from pubs. Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of digital and creative media works, where each week we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
Hello, my name's Ben.
It's now occurred to me that I would love if every intro was sort of like...
Slightly different?
Well, like, not even slightly different, like, got less confident as the show went on. Like, we started off really strong, and then I was like, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, where, we got you, I don't know, guys. Hi.
I'm not entirely sure what we're doing
We're
anymore.
back. We talk about shows and games and stuff. But we're still in the middle of a month where we bring up something contentious and an opinion that we have.
We're at the second half.
We're in the second half of that. So this week
is the third one.
This is the third one. It's my
second last.
It's my not video game one. You have a not video game one next week. We've previously talked about some kind of
weird shit.
Last week's episode, I think for me was really eye-opening. Like, I learned a lot about VR and video games.
Yeah.
If you missed that one, it's maybe one of my favorite episodes of this podcast we've ever done.
It's pretty wild.
Like, I feel like I learned so much.
A bit.
Yeah. It's really good. And then the week before that, I just basically banged on about Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yeah.
So it's like ups and downs, you know. It's what you expect.
That one was
from
a
this.
bit fucking dreary.
It was. I ranted for half an hour, but it's fine. So I figured,
welcome back to David ranting for half an hour.
But I figured, speaking of dreary, I wanted to talk about what to me is like a kind of interesting part of cinema and storytelling that no one's really discussing, because what we're going to talk about is the defense of Batman Begins. And the reason I wanted to do that is...
Batman Begins is a good film. Why do you have to defend it?
Because it's, like, the sequel to it is one of the greatest films ever made of all time.
Which is... Yeah, you are correct.
Like, The Dark Knight is, like, one of those films that, like, it's Christopher Nolan, like, that and Inception are, like, the two things that you put in a time capsule. And when he dies, that's what you bring up at his funeral.
It's what you pop out, yeah.
Yeah, like, those are, like, the two things he's made that he will never surpass or supplant. Like, those are, like, his things.
Yeah.
Right? And you look at Jonathan Nolan, he did Westworld. So it's like, the Nolan brothers are clearly quite talented. But
there's
for
something
me...
in that Nolan noggins of them.
Fucking English people, something about them. But there's something to me in this film in particular that... Like, okay, so The Dark Knight is this incredible masterpiece. But Batman Begins is... such a visceral representation of this character that we hadn't really seen in, like, film, screen, and the use of, like, CGI was so new and interesting that for me, I think that as much as The Dark Knight is, like, this masterpiece, Batman Begins is really, like, a tech run for a lot of the ideas.
Right.
But, like, a tech run insofar as not just, like, actual technical stuff, but script writing, storytelling, character, like, everything feels like a tech run.
Are you trying to say that you think that Batman Begins is better than Dark Knight?
I think it's a better Batman film.
Oh, David.
I know.
Get out of here with that garbage opinion.
Look, I think that The Dark Knight is a better film, but I think Batman Begins is a better Batman film, and here is why.
Okay.
If you'll strap in with me for this journey.
I'm going to loosely strap myself in so I can fall out at a moment's notice.
Yeah, please do. We don't have, like, seatbelts on these things, but if we did...
We should. We should get
so whenever someone has, like, an extreme opinion, you just go like an airplane.
Strapping in.
Yeah, I would love that.
We'll go to... There's, like, some places you can go where they just strip airplanes and you can just buy...
Or you can just buy, like, excess parts.
The parts of airplanes.
Well,
like, if we ever toilet seats and shit.
If we ever have to, like, rebuild the set, we might just get, like, airplane seats. But they're so uncomfortable.
We might just buy a 747.
Like the whole thing?
Yeah, just the whole thing in parts.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Just recreate it.
Or just plop it in a backyard. That's your set. I would love to do that, actually.
Shoot down a plane.
You've stepped it up to something else that I'm not comfortable with.
And then it just comes down for you.
Oh, you just nailed the timing.
Delivery.
So, I think, like... And to try and, like, break down a few...
That was a joke. I'm not actually suggesting we shoot down a plane.
that was pretty obvious. Yeah. I don't know. I was going to say, like, in The Dark Knight Rises, Bane does that sweet... nasty action sequence where he's in they cut the plane in half and
oh Jesus, yeah, and he just extracts them.
They just did that. They did that in real life. That wasn't really a stunt. They just did it. Really? I don't know if you've seen the behind the scenes. Yeah, they just did that in real life, and I was like, oh, okay. But that's like one of the reasons these films are so cool is like they just do a lot of the stunts. Like they flip that truck in The Dark Knight, and you're like, I thought that was CGI, but they just flipped the truck.
Yeah.
And this film is like a lot of the same kind of stuff where, like, because Batman Begins is the story of, like, Bruce becoming, like, a self-actualized person. He goes from, like, grappling with, his parents die and he's got to deal with this stuff. And there's this scene in the start of the film that I think is like, for me, one of the most interesting.
Is it where his parents die?
No,
because just that scene that we've seen a
that
lot
everywhere.
Yeah.
But what was interesting to me is like listening to Christopher Nolan talk about this film, and like especially like David S. Goyer, who wrote the screenplay for this. There is this element of Bruce Wayne that they tried to explore that like before this we hadn't really seen. It's come up again and again after this film, but
right.
There's this element of like this character of Bruce Wayne who has always been like this billionaire philanthropist, kind of like playboy. He's like the Tony Stark kind of person, right? That is the Tony Stark quote. He's always been that, but this was the film where they were like, yeah, but what if he was trying to escape that at the start? Like, because in the start of this film, like, it opens with him, taking on 8 dudes in this prison camp and beating the shit out of them, and it's like muddy, gritty, grubby, like unpleasant fight sequence that you watch the behind the scenes of, and it's like crazy complicated, but Christian Bale does all of the fight scenes.
Yeah.
And there's an element of, you go, okay, well, here's a character you're putting into these scenarios we haven't really seen in this setting before. But
it's like, this is Batman Begins. He's not really Batman.
No, he's not really realized into that.
Yeah, like it is an origin. It's not like origin story as in like, here's his parents dying again, but it's like, it's sort of actual Batman.
What is it?
Origin.
Yeah.
It's more where it's like, I want to be a bat because I am afraid of bats.
Well, it's more the origin story of like, how do you go from being like a billionaire kid to becoming like this ferocious animal who, beats the shit out of people.
And Raja al Ghul is there.
Yeah, he's also
Liam
there,
Neeson.
which we'll touch on in a minute. But for me, there's a scene that is a good pivot point for like trying to understand why I think this is like a really good Batman film, which is the courthouse scene where he's going to confront his parents' killer, the guy who shoots them at the start of the film, and Bruce has got a gun and he's planning to kill them, but someone beats him to it. Like someone else shoots him.
He's like, oh, I don't have to go to jail.
Yeah, he's like, holy shit. And then, he gets in the car with Rachel and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what? Like, she's like, something's wrong. What's going on? And he's like, I was going to shoot him. So he's like, he has the gun. And she's like ashamed and disappointed in him that he was going to do it. But what's kind of cool about this film is he doesn't shoot them, but like he probably would have.
Yeah, well, he was planning to.
Yeah, this like he's not this like, I think in a lot of like Batman stories,
kind of weird, just like simultaneously bad and good writing.
It's kind of like both.
It's like bad writing in the sense that it's like, it's very convenient that someone else shot the guy, but then it's simultaneously good writing in the sense that where it's like you were able to kind of experience the consequences of an action without having to actually go through the consequences.
It's an interesting thing because like, so scenes turn on like valence shifts where a scene goes from like positive to negative or negative to positive, or like negative to double negative.
Kind of like,
but like, so, and there's 2 ways that you can turn a scene. There's either like decision making, so like someone does an action, or there's revelation, and revelation is like someone realizes something and it changes the plot. And the way that you get to that is like coincidence or like decisions and actions in the story. So like coincidence is like a cool plot point if done well. Like the entire show of Seinfeld is created by coincidences that occur in the show, and it's great because it examines that idea of like, what if pretty much nothing was in your control? How funny is that? And it's a great show for that reason. This is an interesting scene to me because you're talking about a character who is so deliberate in everything else he does, like the way that he builds the suit and the cave and all. Like he's so planned out, and he's the guy that's got like the contingency for everything. He could kill Superman if he wanted to.
Just really likes bats,
but like he kind of becomes this person because someone else beat him to the punch. Like that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah,
thematically, that like he's who he is because kind of chance.
Who's the person that does shoot the...
I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he's just like a crook who... Like he's no one in this story. Like he's just like a nobody.
He's just some guy.
Yeah, it's just some guy who shot the Waynes because he was like robbing them.
No, as in who shot the killer.
I can't remember. I think it's one of Marconi's guys, because that's why Bruce then goes to Marconi's men immediately afterwards and like confronts them in the club. And then,
the club,
Marconi like laughs at him. It's like an Italian restaurant. But they're like laughing out of the room, and they're like, "You're a fucking punk. You don't know what you're doing." That's when he decides to go on his journey to then like he goes across the world, like
to Ra's al Ghul boy.
Well, what he's really looking for is answers as to like who he is, because like his parents are dead, and he's like, "Well, I don't really have anything outside of that identity, and I was going to kill
a lot
this
of
guy.
money.
And I'm really rich. So he's like, but who would I be without the money? And that's kind of the journey of this character in this story is like what do you have to become to actually like fix the fix the problem of your parents' death? And for him, it's like, well, the problem wasn't his parents. The problem was like the justice and the people. Like there was no one to save them.
Yeah.
So he's like, I want to stop that from happening to other people. But to me, what's kind of interesting is in The Dark Knight, he's looking to like beat Joker, and in The Dark Knight Rises, he's looking to like reclaim his identity. But this one is like, well, what is the identity? Like, it's not just Batman. It's like Bruce Wayne as well. Like, is not an actualized character at the start of this. He's just a rich dude who's like, well, I dropped out of college and now I don't know what to do. Like, he's just kind of banging about.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in the other films, they're trying to like confront that edifice against other. They're like, how do we break Batman? How do we challenge him in such interesting ways? Whereas this, I'm like, well, they just kind of formed the character of Bruce Wayne, and that to me, like, you don't really. That's not in any other Batman films. Like, this is the only origin story we've seen on screen.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. Whereas Spider-Man, we've seen like 8 of them.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Like it, yeah.
They're all completely different.
And they're all so different, but also the same because Uncle Ben gets shot every time.
Yeah.
And you're like, why did I watch that? This is the third one.
It's just great responsibility, great
power and
power.
some shit. It's me, Mom.
Spider bite.
Sheen. Ugh.
My hair raises on its ends. When bad things happen.
We're all really hot. One of us is a 35-year-old man. But to me, like, so the cool thing about this film is the origin story of it is like Christopher Nolan knew that he wanted to do it, and he got the writer David S. Goyer, and they basically like were in Nolan's garage working on the film, and like they built this, like the production designer built like the full scale like Gotham City set, like the miniature set in Nolan's garage.
God.
Like it's such a cool story.
So lame.
I know, they're just like these bunch of nerds who were like, we're gonna do a Batman film, and they just like did it in his garage. And it's like, how do you tell real people in your real life you're doing that? Which I just kind of
like,
love.
That the difference between like that and just like a bunch of middle-aged guys playing like a Batman D&D role play game is just that there's more.
It's a
money.
very thin sliver.
It's a very, very fine line.
But to me, like, that speaks to why this is like such a focused vision. Whereas you look at like BVS or like Justice League, where it's like written by a committee.
Let's not even look at those.
And it's just like this vanilla thing. Whereas like, yeah, I think, you know, particularly because this film was like 2005. It was like just after the prequels where
this was
CGI looked like garbage and like everything was just no good.
This was like post Spider-Man.
This was off the back of people seeing that Sam Raimi had made something that was good with a superhero film.
Yeah, this was like early superheroes.
But even like
Marvel.
Yeah, even that Sam Raimi Spider-Man film is quite goofy. Like it's got it's kind of quite comic-y, whereas this one is more like heightened reality. Like, and I think that's like a crucial difference. I mean, it's like
this film has like the big meme of being dark and gritty and, you know, sort of setting the stage for what DC is now, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And it was like a direct sort of kind of like, I don't know, antithesis to Spider-Man.
It couldn't have been more.
And then Spider-Man 3 came out, and they were like, we want to be more like Batman.
We kind of goofed that one up, huh?
Because dark and gritty was like a big thing.
Well, I think that's like a post-90s movement where there was a realization that like...
It's like the Matrix.
Yeah, you can do dark and gritty with CGI. It doesn't have to look bad. Like, one of the things that was interesting to me about watching... Yeah, exactly. A lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff for Batman Begins, like, the CGI they use isn't to, like, do crazy action. It's to, like, do background set stuff or like to add in
fill in the blanks. Vehicles
and to like really do set dressing and like really interesting, kind of like more like David Fincher CGI than like a Michael Bay CGI kind of thing. But what's
a lot of Michael Bay is practical, but I'd argue that it is more Michael Bay CGI. A lot of Michael Bay is practical.
But the problem with I think the problem with like a lot of but the way that he uses, I'm not talking about his set design or like his use of actual like animatronics. I mean, like literally the CGI he uses is often to replace certain things for a particular effect. So like he a good example is like he'll substitute in like a city backdrop for a different city, whereas like Chris Nolan's CGI is much more like we built most of the city, but we need to put in like cars and a monorail.
Yeah, I thought you were just referring to like explosions.
Oh no, he does a lot of that in like practical stuff because he loves explosions.
Yeah.
No, I meant like so like a good example is there's a sequence in Batman Begins where it's a virtual camera that swoops down on this this city block zooming toward Wayne Tower, and there's a monorail.
Shot, yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's probably all CGI. They built all of that except for the monorail and Wayne Tower at the end.
Wow.
So they cleared out the city street and then they took composite shots and photography of a city street, layered that over their miniature and 3D models, and then did it all. And it looks really awesome. But like that's his use of CGI mostly, is to achieve stuff like that.
Nowadays, you can just use a fucking drone to do that.
It's crazy.
That's the crazy thing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But then you look at something like this, and there was like the limitations in films like this created a sense of like realness, and that's why. Then you look at the crazy thing about this film, because every other film in this era was like, Sam Raimi did get, he got Tobey Maguire to get jacked and to do Spider-Man, and like he did a lot of the blocking work for the stunts, but he had a stuntman, right? Whereas this like is wild to me. They had stuntmen for Christian Bale and for Liam Neeson, but they basically did all of the fight scenes themselves, and like
they're just fucking nerds and they just wanted to.
I don't know. It's when they talk about the film and the way that it was put together, they use this fight style called Keysi, Keysi, which was kind of new at the time, and it was this idea of like improvised. They described it as like a combination of like American kickboxing and then like bar fighting, where it's like a bunch of like different martial arts kind of jammed together, and it's very like improvised. So one of the guys describes like a fight scene they blocked out they didn't use in the original or in the final product, where it's like, Bruce Wayne fighting some guy in like a bar fight, and he like he's in the middle of like doing like an actual martial arts move, and then he gets an ashtray and smashes it into this guy's face.
Yeah. And
what you see in the actual film is this really unique fight style from Bruce Wayne, where it's like a lot of elbows and sort of there are these movements in it that are very unusual that you're not seeing in other places. And it's because they were using this new style of martial arts, which feels like context-based fighting, like in an Arkham video game that you play now.
Oh my god!
They basically copied all of that, but then turned it up to 11.
Sure.
Where it's like he's punching someone and he like kicks off a wall and then elbows them or something. But it was the origin of that was this fighting style that was like the path of least resistance, which is what they talk about in the documentary, which is like the way they taught Christian Bale to do these fight moves and the way that the fight coordinator did them is like, Batman isn't gonna like do a flip over someone and then punch them. He's gonna like turn around and knock them out.
Yeah.
Like, there was a big focus on like path of least resistance of solving the problem. The problem is someone's attacking you. The solution is knock them the fuck out.
This is also like this is Christian Bale coming off.
It came off The Machinist, where he weighed nothing.
The
Machinist, where he weighed that was where he was an anorexic dude.
No, but there was a film he did that was basically a copy of The Matrix, which was like it had like this thing called Gun Carter, which is like the most bullshitty wushu like.
Oh, it's just, a bad John Wick.
Yeah, very very John Wicky, but like not. But like John Wick plus The Matrix plus like bad wushu.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just like a complete departure where he was probably just sick of doing dumb shit.
And like it's like the antithesis of that.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked a lot about because I've watched the behind the scenes, like there's like a 2-hour documentary. I watched most of it today. I was rewatching it this afternoon. And
I haven't seen it in years.
It's really interesting. I love this film.
I need to go back and rewatch.
I'm gonna rewatch the actual film tonight, but I love watching the behind the scenes because they talk about stuff like even, instead of what they could have done, which was like CGI'd the Batcave, they just built it. They were like, well, we need a Batcave. We're just gonna do it, and it's that to me, like and then, but they talk about like
because this is in like the age of like Lord of the Rings as well.
It's
It's
like slipping over that edge of like.
But like Lord of the Rings, they were like, we're gonna build everything.
And the cool
we'll
thing,
fill in the rest with CG.
Yeah, or we'll do like location photography in New Zealand to make it all. But the problem with so like a lot of the principal
no location for Gotham.
Well, the principal photography was like Chicago mostly, which makes sense because it's like a New York analog in all the comics. But it's kind of weird when you actually think about the setting of this film. It's not a real city, but when you watch these films, especially in the next one, it feels like such a place.
Well, like even Dark Knight Rises is so obviously Chicago. Isn't it actually set in Chicago?
It's
you literally see the Golden Gate
when you
Bridge.
watch it. You're like this. It's
like this isn't Gotham. Like it's straight up like like when he's flying in his weird bat plane with the nuke or whatever. Like it's like Golden Gate Bridge in the background. You're like, this Chicago?
They kind of wanted it. I think with the problem with that film in particular is like they wanted it to feel bigger in scale. Missing, of course, the fact that's interesting about Gotham is it's so claustrophobic.
Yeah,
where they were like, this is about the whole city. But one of the cool things about like Batman as a character is like he's not that. He's the dude that's like, I'm gonna save one city block or like one family. Like I'm gonna be like this film. Like sure, he does save the city, but really, he saves the city from the thing that he caused himself, which was when he like destroyed the League of Shadows. They were like, we now have to fuck up Gotham because we've got no other options because we're out of operatives. Like everything in this film is like cause and effect, consequence for like him saving Ducard, who ends up, and Liam Neeson's character who becomes Ra's al Ghul at the end. We get that reveal, but kind of interesting to me as well when you think about like films since, Ben Affleck as Batman in that fight scene in the warehouse. He is like this animal. Like he is just this. Like you watch that warehouse fight scene, and you were like, "This could be a film." Like if they made the film about this type of character, it would be amazing.
But they're kind of like this is the same person. You're like, no, it's not.
They cut to the next scene, and he's like this diplomatic kind of, he's Ben Affleck. And Ben Affleck is like a great Bruce Wayne, but that is not the same Batman that you're seeing. And one of the things that Christian Bale does really well is his Batman and his Bruce Wayne they line up really well. They don't feel like departures from each other. It's not like he puts on the cowl and it's like this whole different persona. As much as like, he's got this voice affectation that he does. Which, like, it's been memed to death.
It's a bit of a meme, yeah.
But, like, that's what he's trying to affect. Like, if you think about the world this exists in, like, he's trying to affect that, where it's like he is trying to be this, like, animal. And you see that in the fight styles and the fight scenes. And one of the biggest things that I noticed watching the behind the scenes that they kind of, like, shied away from was, I think they hurt Christian Bale a lot by accident. Because of the way that they were doing with this KSI, this fight style is... Yeah. Particularly the KFM stuff they did is like the hits are only like 3 inches off where they should be. So they're still getting hit in these fight scenes, just not where they should be. So like, there's a scene where he's on the in the film where he's like it's when he's doing the League of Shadows and he's sort of on these pillars of wood and he's fighting with this staff and they're trying to hit him and he's dodging them or whatever. Yeah. And then they start to beat him up and he's got to like hold on and not fall off. They just were actually hitting him with sticks. And like that to me, like you talk about like what makes like a film, like an action film feel realistic, and like John Wick has an element to it as well, where like
Jesus.
You just really stick to stuff like that. Where it's like, this dude is getting hit repeatedly and Christian Bale has a photographic memory. So he's seeing a fight scene one day and then coming back the next day and nailing it.
Yeah.
So you've got the advantage of being like, we're gonna teach this guy this fight scene, he's gonna nail it tomorrow, and we're gonna do 3 or 4 takes. And we're going to keep doing the bit where he gets hit until it feels real. And at that point, he's kind of getting hit.
I always find it weird, the sort of... There's like 2 types of actors. There's like the actor where... And this is like a generalization. But like you see this in like Hollywood films. And like in this regards, you have sort of the actors where it's like... They're worth too much to really even risk... like doing anything wrong with them.
You can't breathe on Ben Affleck.
This, like I noticed this when they would in the behind the scenes of Thor Ragnarok when they were doing the scene with Chris when he's like tied up in like in the chains at the start of the film and he's like rotating around. Yeah. There was like a shot of them like when they had him strung up, and like after the shot when they were bringing him down, there was literally someone whose job was just to hold his head. Was just there, like, as he's lowering.
His head is insured for so much money.
Exactly. Just there to make sure that he doesn't, like, injure his neck on the way down.
Yeah.
It's like, you compare that to Christian Bale, where they're just like, take 3 of beating up Christian Bale. Who wants in?
They're in that fight.
Bring in the interns, and the monkeys coming with sticks. Start whacking him.
Apparently, like, and you're like, yeah, it's such a different mentality. But then you think about someone like Christian Bale, like he's the guy.
But Christian Bale is still worth a lot.
But he's worth a lot of money. But the reason he's worth a lot of money is he is the guy who, for something like The Machinist, was like, yeah, I'll lose all of my body fat, and I'll become anorexic. And then for Batman, like
he was like, what's that? I need to become
Chris Nolan was like, hey, you need to put on muscle for this. You got to get like bulked up. And he turned up, and they were like, you're too bulked up. You're not gonna fit in the suit.
You went too far.
He was like too jacked. Like that, he turned up on day one, and they were like,
too jacked.
They were like, he's not gonna fit in the suit. He's too jacked, and that like, that's a dude who's like, and like, he's committed to the job. Like, you talk about actors. Like, okay, so this is why I think Christian Bale, this isn't related to my point, but I think Christian Bale is one of the greatest actors of all time because he's not a method actor. He's not going home being like, I am Batman. But like what he's doing...
He's not Jared Leto.
No, he just works really hard.
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, Jared Leto is an incredible actor.
And a sex pest.
Look, that... here's what I'll say. That whole scenario around that, I think that what happened was, from what we've learned in the time since, a scenario was created where that was an expectation of the way he would behave. And so he did all of those things that he shouldn't have done, and everyone went, no worries, Jared, you're preparing for the role. Whereas someone like Christian Bale, like, just does his job really well.
Yeah.
Like, he just really cares about the job, like, the roles that he's in. And that, to me, is, like, more important than, like, you know, and Leo DiCaprio went into the woods and ate liver for, like, 6 months before... What the great
one with the bear.
What's it called? You know the one that we're thinking of.
I know. It's the one with the bear.
And he goes and eats liver, and it's like, that's cool, but you didn't have to do that. You could have just pretended that you'd done that. Your job is to pretend.
Yeah.
Like that's what Christian Bale pretends really well. Like that's what he does.
He's really good at pretending.
He's really good. That's what an actor does, and like that to me is more valuable than someone that's like, you know, well, I've method acted this thing for 6 months. It's like cool. You could have just done your job and pretended to be that person. And that to me is like why when you look at the fights, so, you know, the last fight scene in this film between Liam Neeson's character, Ra's al Ghul, and Batman. And by the way, in this film, they say Ra's al Ghul, and it's the first time it's ever been pronounced like that. I can't get it out of my head. In the comics, it's always been Ra's, but now that they've said Ra's, I'm like, it sounds better.
God damn it.
They have this fight scene in this monorail carriage, and it's the monorail, again, like the imagery and the symbolicness, obviously the Simpsons monorail joke here, but like the symbolicness of that fight is like incredible, where it's like the monorail that Bruce Wayne's father built, and to save the city has to destroy the legacy his father built. Like there's just like so much like vivid, visceral, like thematic imagery happening.
And Scarecrow's in this film.
He's also in it. Yeah. He's again, like if you think about the cast of this film,
nightmares.
They spent a lot of money on like Morgan Freeman, Christian Bale, Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
What's his fucking name? What's Scarecrow's name? It's not Jonathan. I literally was thinking of his name before. He's in 28 Days Later. He's fantastic. He's great in everything he's in.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
He looks like Mads Mikkelsen, but he's not.
Yeah, but he's like a younger.
He's like a younger, less creepy Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah, and I love him. He's great in everything. I apologize, I can't remember your name. You're a fantastic actor. But there are elements to this film, like you look at the amount of money they spent on making
he's a good
sure
Bond
that
villain.
He's such a good.
Is he a Bond villain?
No, but he should.
But he should be. Yeah.
Yeah, Mads
right.
is. You were thinking of Mads. Mads is the Bond villain in Casino Royale.
Yeah, he's like the Spectre guy.
Yeah.
I feel like let's continue.
Yeah, but like to me, what makes a good like comic book film is when you're watching it, you don't really think of it as being like you don't watch Batman Begins and be like, this is a great Batman film. You watch it and it pulls you into what's happening. Like you become lost in like the elements of it, where it's like you invest in Bruce Wayne's story, not because he's this billionaire, but because in that first fight sequence, you see this like potential of this guy who's like this animal in a fight. Like he's just beating these dudes to a mess with like no control, no refinement, and he's just beating these guys to a fucking mess in this mud in this prison. And you go from that to that ending fight sequence where it's him and Ra's al Ghul and they're on this equal playing field. And the reason that Batman wins is that he's able to improvise and adapt and become different. Yeah. And like when you think about like a lesson of a film, and people always talk about what does the film mean? Like, you know, like
what is it about?
Film theory. But it's like, you know, what is Batman Begins about? It's about like finding your identity and then being able to, once you've found that, adapt the lessons you've learned to be like personalized and like about you, not about the person that taught you those lessons. And then ultimately like to use that to do something good. And like, yeah, he could spend his wealth and fix the city. And like everyone's heard those arguments before, but like to me,
he could just give everyone money. That'll solve everyone's problems.
But that's kind of
give him money.
That's kind of what Batman, like it's kind of what the Dark Knight explores, is like if he had to quit being Batman, what would he do to fix the city? That's an element of that film where Bruce Wayne's like, I guess I give up the cowl and I do the other thing. Whereas like this film is like, well, how do you become the person that has to make that choice? And always I think coming of age stories have an element, and it's just because like everyone goes through this, where it's like you have this like rudderless life at some point and you go through these trials.
And then you find a rudder.
And well, yeah, you find a purpose, and then you go back to being rudderless, and then you find like it's just a cycle we go through. It's like the hero's journey. And to me, like if you're talking about like great films that like influence your childhood and like help you form as this came out in like 2005. Like I was quite young.
Pivotal moment in David's life.
Yeah, like for me, this was a film, and like I was already invested in Batman as like a mythos. But for me, this was like not about Batman. It was like about realizing that if you have all of these resources that you put into something that you care about, like Christopher Nolan, like picked everything really, like he's kind of up there with like, you know, these like David Weiners and the people in that industry who are like so talented at picking and choosing like specific scenes and sequences and like really being very careful about every specific detail. You look at this film as a whole and you just go, it is buck wild that they made it as good as it is in a time when Sam Raimi was like, the thing you do is the CGI.
Spider-Man.
And it's that you cast the 35-year-old man as the teenager, and they're like, no, this is a Bruce Wayne who was like older. He's like 30, and he's got, it's Christian Bale, and he's doing these, and like it just to me speaks to everything that Christopher Nolan's done in the meantime, which is if you have a vision, then what you should do is do your best to make it in the confines you have, not be like, give us $10 million and we'll do it. You know, it's like, make the thing that you want to make. Don't make the thing that you could make with all of the money. And that to me is like why this is, I think, the best Batman film. Even though The Dark Knight is like clearly like a superior like film, like it's a masterpiece, and it's gonna go in the time capsule when we die and we send it into the stars, and like, it's gonna be one of those films. Like same with Inception and a bunch of other things. But for me, if you're talking about like films that influence you in a way that makes you think about storytelling differently, this is that film for me where I was like, oh, you can do superheroes, but have it not be about being super. It's about just like someone doing their best to make a difference. And they did a lot of it practically. And that's like, I don't know, like if you're talking about like things that people really underrate or like don't think are fantastic, this film to me is like criminally underrated because it set forth like a precedent for like what you can do if you have a vision and you have a budget. You can actually like take an existing IP and make something good from it. And there's like a lot of industries that could learn from that, like video games, films, TV. Like I don't know, I just think it's one of those pieces of media that we should talk about more.
The film gave me nightmares as a child, so I don't
Scarecrow's
like it.
real scary because you get the maggots in his
so
face. So it's real spooky. Yeah, too spook.
Yeah, not
too
not
spook.
fun.
Too furious. Have you got any recommendations for this
I've been doing literally nothing but move out and move in.
I was doing that last month.
I've been doing nothing but move boxes upstairs, just from the car upstairs. Lots of going upstairs. I fucking literally nothing.
That's what, like my
We're watching
month.
TV. Because we don't have internet yet.
Oh god!
So it's just been nothing.
I've
been reading like the Smash Brothers subreddit and just getting excited. That's been my week.
Wow.
My recommendation: just binge Smash Brothers news. I guess
it's good. It's all good.
God damn it! I
so
keep getting
for this video game.
The more I read about it, the more I get excited. It's really bad.
I would buy it tomorrow.
I'd buy it yesterday.
They just won't let us yet.
They just won't let us. It's 6 months.
Let me pre-order that shit.
You can pre-order it already, but like,
yeah, but I want to.
I'm not gonna pre-order.
I want that game right now, though. I'm so excited about it.
I want to pre-order it now.
I keep thinking about it.
I want it.
I keep thinking about it. I'm like, I want to play Smash.
I keep looking at the goddamn subreddit, hoping that like it'll be like the demo is out.
Well, the demo's out. Our productivity is over.
But,
But like, I've been playing Darkest Dungeon all week because the DLC came out yesterday, so I had to prep my roster for that. And
you had to give yourself some time slots for when you're just going to be ruining your life with Darkest Dungeon.
That's all I've done for like 2 days. It's so good. God, it's good. So like, okay, what they've done is they've taken the base game and they were like, what if it was way harder, but the rewards were way more interesting? So like, instead of what normally happens they also did like a big balance update for the whole game, which really helped. But like, they've introduced all of these trinkets, which are like boosts for your characters.
Yeah.
That don't just help you and harm you. They do really weird shit. So like one of them is like a trinket for a particular class that like boosts like AC and like it's like AC and something that's like I don't want to spoil like the mechanic that the DLC introduced, but like something that's like really important to succeeding.
Yeah.
But then has this huge detrimental thing where if a character in your party dies during a battle, everyone gets 100% stress and gets something else like a minus to 50 stun resist. It's like a buck wild like will never happen negative effect.
Right.
Literally the battle after I purchased it and used it, I had that happen to me, and I was like, "Fuck!" And like, I got party wiped and lost
Jesus Christ!
Like it is just So my goal this week and next week is to finish the game and uninstall it. Because all I want to do is play it. I was like, I don't want to do Offroaders, I just want to play Darkest Dungeon. Holy shit, that game is genius. It's on sale right now, and you get the whole game, all the DLC and the soundtrack for like $20. Or you can just buy the game for like $5. If you haven't played Darkest Dungeon, buy it on Steam. It is, in my opinion, one of the greatest video games of all time.
It's on the Switch as well, but it's really hard to play on the Switch.
It's hard on the Switch because the controls don't quite make sense.
The controls just suck dick.
But
they're just bad.
Serious, it's just on PC, fucking hell. But also, just as a related note, I spilled scotch on my laptop the other day, and the wireless card doesn't work anymore.
Oh, good.
So I can't play Darkest Dungeon on my laptop in bed because I can't sync up to the Steam.
No.
But thankfully the router is next to my bedroom, so I've just run an Ethernet cord through, so I can play it in bed.
So you can get your Darkest Dungeon fixed.
I've got a problem.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting to that point.
That sounds like
I'm like, what if I run a cable through the roof and into my bedroom? Like it's like what are you talking about?
It's your Darkest Dungeon cable.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's such a fucking good video game. That and I've started playing Metro 2023 or 2033. Really cool idea for a video game and really fun, and I'm loving it, but man, it's old. Like playing it, like it looks like a new game because they've done it in the new engine. But man, it's like a fucking old concept where it's like chapters are like 10 minutes each.
Yeah,
it's real weird. I'm loving it, but man, it's weird.
It is weird.
So I don't know. Check that out if you want. Otherwise, I've literally done nothing but play Darkest Dungeon. I've got nothing for you. But I've got a video coming out next week about Lie to Me, which is a show that apparently no one watched. It's one of the greatest shows of all time. So check my Twitter if you want to see some of that stuff. But as always, where can people find us, Ben?
Facebook. I'm sorry, that was gross.
At DCMworks Social. It's not, you belch a lot on this show. Yeah. YouTube.com/DCMworks. Put out a video this week where I spend a lot of time researching why dads run weird in games, and then I say potentiometer wrong.
You do. Did you keep that in?
I changed
potentiometer.
I changed the first one because it was the only one that sounded wrong. Everything else is pretty close. But it's potentiometer. It's potentiometer. It's because my fucking accent. Potentiometer.
Potentiometer.
Potentiometer. But it's because eater is like meter. Potentiometer.
Oh my fucking god.
I can't do it. I can't. Potentiometer.
Yeah, it's a potentiometer.
Yeah, it's like an odometer.
No, it's not. It's a variable resistor.
No, but the linguistic origin.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's like odometer.
I didn't mean it was similar to odometer.
I was going to say it's nothing like an odometer.
No, so it's wrong in that video, but it's a great video. Yeah. It's like 3 minutes long, and I'm really loving that format, so I'm going to do a bunch more stuff with it. We're still in the middle of it, but we tell people where they can find us.
Twitter?
Yeah, at DCM_works.
YouTube.
Patreon. Patreon.com/DCMworks. And if you want to support us, you can subscribe for more than $3 a month. You get access to up to 60 behind the scenes, Patreon only.
No more.
Podcasts open to
up
suggestion.
To 60, that's it.
Stuff like the weird audiobook interface. The next one's coming out soon. To be honest, I've been editing the audiobook for my actual book, so priority because one of them, like, I get to sell.
One of them makes.
So, yes, but that'll come out.
Technically,
they will technically make money.
One of them is a book that we wrote. One of them is something from the internet.
Exactly. So keep an eye out for that soon. Otherwise, you can get access to all that content. Really appreciate you guys supporting us. Big shout out to Yoop Kuman, still our biggest Patreon supporter. Cheers for looking out for us. Fam. Means a lot. Helps us keep the lights on and helps me justify doing this. So that's always nice. But yeah, you can go to patreon.com/DCMworks. For $3 a month, you basically subscribe and get access to everything that we've made. And we keep providing you kind of new interesting stuff. Most recent thing we put up was our E3 breakdown, where we go through all of the announcements from E3 and talk about them.
E3 budget blowout.
Yeah, we basically do a reaction.
Bugs a million.
It's a reaction podcast, I think.
It's very, very dumb.
There's some good bits in the middle where we argue about stuff, but otherwise, I think it's kind of.
But otherwise, it's pretty garbage.
It's perfectly serviceable. Yeah, that's content. So you can subscribe for that at patreon.com/DCMworks. Otherwise, if you want to follow us individually, I'm at DCM I Hate Pie.
I'm at literal citrus. He's gonna cut that first bit out.
Staying in. Okay. I will see you guys next time.